falling down from the sound of his own pyro. Fuck you, you're not burying these fucking guys. This would be fiduciary irresponsibility if I allowed you to fucking bury our main event talent, so I am going to insist that you not. It's just fucking stupid. You can't just say, oh, we'll give him a different gimmick. You got to get him the fuck out of there and make people forget about it first. I don't care who it is.
Do you think you could ever... It's been done many times. I remember Mike Boyette doing it in the UWF, and various people have had it. Do you think the losing streak gimmick could ever work for a positive?
Well, I mean, as something underneath to... when the guy that has the losing streak has a heel manager that you can work a fucking main event babyface into a conflict with or whatever the fuck, you can kind of do something every once in a while with almost anything. But no, as far as getting a guy over to be in a better position than he fucking is, no, a losing streak is the last thing you want to do. He'll be on TV more. And by the time that fucking angle's finished on TV, he'll be on TV less. A lot less. That's the thing. Better to be not seen than seen in a bad light. If you've got any, potential at all. Never fucking... That's why I never understood giving guys silly gimmicks to introduce them. Just introduce the fucking guy. Let him grow into something rather than dooming him from the start with a stupid fucking silly gimmick that makes people go, okay, this is the guy we need to go to the fucking concession stand and get the popcorn during his match because he's a fucking clown. And then you just wasted a talent. Yeah. You can soar with the Eagles or scratch with the chickens. I'm going to aim for the fucking Eagles, and then if I have to settle with the fucking chicken shit to keep the job, well, then we'll deal with that later. But let's try to take the high road first.
Soar with the Eagles.
Or scratch with the chickens. Do we have time for one more?
One more.
This might be a fun way to end. Austin writes, Dear Jim, puts me over a little bit, but my question is regarding wrestling movies. What was your take on The Wrestler? Not the one starring Mickey Rourke, of course. I'm, of course, referring to the film released in 1974 starring Ed Asner and Slammin' Sam Miniker, produced by Vern Gagne and featuring a cameo of actual NWA promoters, including Vince McMahon Sr. I thought it was very poignant, and it was great to have that one segment that took place in a gym somewhere in Minneapolis. It was Vern's training camp. Flair was in the background because they shot it in 72 when he was there. Simple wrestling moves being performed on trainees with Vern giving a voiceover talking about the history of the sport. And they were performing legitimate wrestling moves that you also could use in the pro ring to try to give credibility to the business, while Vern was talking about how you can be hurt, guys can be injured, this is what affects this and everything, and making it sound like athletics. And he says, I should also mention to ask for your take that one portion of the film featuring Dusty Rhodes and Dick Murdoch getting into a bar fight after promising the promoter they wouldn't, which included a shot of Dusty Rhodes laughing off a beer bottle being broken on his head. That was my favorite wrestling movie. And I have that somewhere around here on VHS. I haven't seen it in forever. I got to find it because I'd love to see it again. But I've told you before, when it debuted in Louisville, it was on a Tuesday morning, and the first showing was like at 10:30. Downtown, above what was the next stop from a porn theater. It was showing like the fucking kung fu and blaxploitation movies of the 70s. And I made my mom take me because she wouldn't take me after dark. So we went at the 10 o'clock in the morning showing, the very first one, and I still have the ticket stubs, in 1974.
Did they promote it on the wrestling show and in the programs and stuff?
Yes. Not only did, and that's when Nick Goulas was still doing the local promos here, and he was still doing, the heels on one segment, the babyface on the other, the 3-minute, deals that you drop in at the beginning in the program at the desk. And he was hilarious because, I've done Nick before. Louisville wrestling fans, Tuesday night U.S. store for one of the biggest cards I've signed in many years, headlined by a return NWA Southern Junior Heavyweight Championship match with the champion, the fabulous Jackie Fargo, defending his title against the challenger, Jerry Lawler. with his manager, Sam Bass. We're expecting an all-time record-breaking crowd, so get your tickets early this Tuesday night. And then he'd give the box office days and hours and et cetera, et cetera. And then he'd go to the talent, and then he'd always have to have time to wrap up afterwards and do the hard sell again. So remember, we're expecting one of the biggest crowds in many years, Tuesday night every week, right? So now he's promoting the goddamn movie, too. And by the time he can get that out, it's a movie with all your favorite wrestlers, ladies and gentlemen, and it's going to be seen at the Penthouse Theater. Even the theater's name was suggestive, the Penthouse, right? It's now the upper floor of the Louisville Palace. They finally restored it. It was an old silent movie theater. And now they have – anyway, great shows there. But so I remember for a couple weeks the talent literally got like fucking 20 seconds to talk in between all of Nick's selling. But they did it on the local show here, but in Indianapolis, because Vern had a piece of it, right? They actually had Sam Mineker interviewing Ed Asner in front of the locker set that they used for their wrestler interviews every week on the TV. They shot them taped them in Chicago and put them in the Chicago and Indy TVs. So we were actually getting here, and only in the Midwest, I think, did that happen, but we were actually getting promos with Ed Asner selling the fucking movie, right? So that was really cool.
Local promos from Ed Asner.
Yes, and I mean, and he liked wrestling. I think he was kind of with it, so he knew what the business was about. But yeah, so they promoted the movie on a lot of the local territories TV shows.
The most unbelievable part of the movie was the idea that the girl, whatever she was, the secretary, whatever, would fall in love with Ed Asner.
Yeah, that was stretching it a little bit. But Mary Tyler Moore was on record as saying that she'd fucking go a round or two with old Mr. Grant, so, you know, it could happen. But what's the matter with you?
She's on the record saying that? I didn't know that.
Well, on the television show.
Oh,
I think
okay.
Did they not?
I guess so. I thought you meant like she did an interview somewhere. She's like, I really wanted to screw Ed Asner.
Oh, no, I don't know if that's one of her life's regrets or not. But on the show, Mary and Lou, they had a romp, I think, at one point. At some point, maybe, I don't know. We'll get somebody to let us know about that. I bet she would have done it. She was probably sneaking in that office. Anyway, I'm trying to be serious about these things. But no, it was a great movie, and to see all of those fucking guys that you never got to see. Dusty Rhodes and Dick Murdoch and the AWA guys and Billy Robinson and Vern Gagne, right?
Vince Senior.
Yeah, well, okay, Vince. That wasn't a big deal. I was 12, right? So I'm looking for the guys I'm seeing on the cover of the magazines and everything. But it was cool. And if I'm not mistaken, was Ray Stevens's turnbuckle bump not only in that movie but also in Paradise Alley?
I believe so. Yes.
Ray Stevens was the guy he dropped the knee on. Oh, what was his name? He was an underneath guy in the AWA for years. Joe Scarpello. But he played a wrestler that Stevens came off the top rope with a knee to the throat and it killed him. This was to show the dangers of pro wrestling. But in that match, I think during the comeback, I think Stevens took his turnbuckle bump, and then 4 years later, Paradise Alley comes out. They had shot in West Texas with the Funks, and Stevens was down there at the time, and they got and Tommy Gilbert was there as Johnny Starr. I think he takes a backdrop, that big old backdrop Tommy Gilbert used to take. But Stevens got the upside down bump. God, I wish I could have seen him in the fucking 60s. I probably would have wet my pants in all variety of sexual ways to get to see. He was just a fucking artist, was Ray Stevens.
And of course, Paradise Alley is what began the relationship between Terry Funk and Sylvester Stallone, which would lead to, amongst other things, Hulk Hogan getting Rocky III.
Yep, exactly. So, see, if they hadn't been nice to Sylvester Stallone down there, and if they'd have been pricks to him, he might not have. And as Terry told me it, I've told this story, but at one time, I can't remember, it may have been Paradise Alley, it may have been another shoot that he did with Stallone, but there were some of the stunt men over there fucking gigging themselves about, the phony wrestlers or whatever. And Stallone shot him down. He said, hey, you fucking motherfuckers try to do what they do in one take with people on all four sides of you and get back to me. Prick, shut up, right? So he did the right thing. But and Terry's had a wide impact on the movie business, because if it hadn't been for him and a good relationship with Stallone, then maybe Hogan wouldn't have been in the movie with the Rocky movie, which led to all that stuff. And also, as was revealed by Terry on the Back to the Territories release I did with him on Amarillo, he once caught Billy Bob Thornton jacking off a dog.
Well, with all due respect to Terry Funk, because he is my very favorite, there are a lot of people who think that he may be getting the wrong Billy Bob in that story, that timeline-wise, it doesn't make a lot of sense.
I'm going to believe what Terry Funk says. If Terry Funk says that his cousin, Billy Bob Thornton, jacked off because he's a cousin by marriage, is what he explained. It's all on the video there, but he caught him in the other room jacking off the dog just to see if he could get a response out of Terry. Terry, what do you think about this? And he was jacking off the dog. I don't know what to tell you.
How do you ever watch him in a movie again after this?
I've always thought of him since as the dog jacker. But anyway, yes, I loved the movie The Wrestler. It was a great fucking movie. I hated as a matter of fact, he finishes this real quick. What sort of movie about wrestling would you like to see or story adapted to the screen? Although decent and worthy of the Oscar, I felt disappointed. Worthy of the Oscar? I felt disappointed by Rourke's film in how it showcased a wrestler's downward slide into obscurity as opposed to anything resembling a success story. That's, once again, not only did I hate the fucking thing because it obviously exposed everything and everybody's talking, but also the successful wrestler in the piece owned a used car lot in Phoenix. Everybody else was goddamn just broke and miserable. It's the most depressive thing I've ever seen. So I threw the actual free DVD I got before it was released out of the car window on the way back from a TNA show in Orlando into the water. But he says, what sort of movie would I like to see? I would have loved to have seen them actually do a movie about Bruno and not gimmick it up so he'd let them do it, because that was the deal. They wanted to do a movie about Bruno Sammartino, but they wanted to gimmick it up and do the artistic license thing, and he just wanted them to tell the straight story, and he would not agree unless they just told it straight. Which how much
wouldn't you
have to gimmick that story up? Mother hiding her children in the mountains and shot by Nazis, stealing food for them to survive. Then he gets fucking rheumatic fever and is a fucking 98-pound weakling that may not survive, and by the time that he moves to the United States and is healthy enough to reunite with his father in Pittsburgh, and he builds himself up in high school, he becomes one of the world's strongest men before he even gets into professional wrestling and becomes one of the biggest gate attractions of all time. Do you need to gimmick that up?
And even the wrestling part. He gets into wrestling, becomes a huge draw, gets into a problem with the promoter, gets blackballed, somehow finds another promoter to book him in Toronto, remains a major draw, comes back and becomes the most powerful wrestler in the history of the business.
And retires on his own terms. And it was happily married all his life and never a whiff of a drug or a scandal or whatever the fuck, et cetera. I don't know. Anyway, that off the top of my head, I'd like to see a movie made about goddamn every wrestler I ever liked, because it was better than the, shit that people make up. But specifically, that would be a great fucking movie, in my opinion. I don't know why they couldn't just do that.
I'd love to see a mini series on Vince, especially in the 80s, just all the moves he made and
my God. Happened. Maybe they can adapt Death of the Territories as a series.
You know what? Unfortunately, you know what will happen? If that happened, we get excited about it, and then someone who has no idea about wrestling would take creative license, exactly what Bruno was afraid of, and then you get another season of Vinyl. That's what it turns into.
Well, there you go. And with that, I think we should put this thing to sleep.
Right.
But ladies and gentlemen, we told you were going to have some bullshit, and we went through a bunch of bullshit with you. Did you know that? And that's what everybody's tuning into this program, because it's a goddamn weekly therapy session for me where I get to vent and talk about shit. And maybe we'll do another one next week if all these goddamn bites. This one bite's been around for a while. It's getting bigger. I think something's implanted itself under there, and it's right next to that fucking artery. The vein goes right up your fucking wrist, right, that you cut when you're trying to kill yourself. So it's probably going to implant itself in my blood. And by this time next month, I'll be the goddamn alien lizard monster from whatever goddamn foreign fucking invading insects have planted themselves in my bloodstream. Fuck, I don't even know if we should do a show next week. I may not have long to live.
Maybe we need to call Stephen P. New.
Well, that's a perfect thing. I am exactly going to do that. I'm going to call Stephen P. New, because now that he has brought an end to the process of putting formaldehyde in baby powder and getting away with it when he's brought justice to so many people that have been wronged by the big corporations and the dastardly doctors and the malpractice